From Redmond, Washington, Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates and other Microsoft officials held a 35-minute news conference sharing their views on the suit by the Justice Department.
Jeff, do you want to join us up here? Good morning. I'm Mitch Matthews. I run PR here at Microsoft. I think we're ready to begin. I'd like to say welcome to all of you here who are assembled here in Redmond, as well as those people who are joining us on the telephone listening into the conference call. As you know, the purpose of the briefing today is to respond to the government's actions with respect to filing an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft. Before I begin some housekeeping, I should mention that those listening in by phone, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions at a second teleconference call that we'll be doing about 30 minutes later after this. The phone-in numbers are on the advisory that went over the wire this morning, also on our website, and I'll circle back at the end of this and give you those numbers. Joining me today is Bill Gates, Chairman and CEO of Microsoft, Bill Newcomb, who's our Senior Vice President of Law and Corporate Affairs, and Jeff Rakes, who's our Group Vice President of Sales at Microsoft. Bill Newcomb will now begin with a statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Good morning, and thank you all for coming this morning. As you know, the Justice Department and 20 state attorney generals today have filed lawsuits against Microsoft Corporation. As many of you also know, we spent the past 2 weeks in serious negotiations with the government in the hopes of averting a lawsuit. We are disappointed that we were not able to resolve the matter. No matter how many proposals we put on the table, the government kept asking for more. Several things are clear at this stage. The government wants Microsoft to either deconstruct our Windows product by removing Internet technology that has been a part of that product since August of 1995, or the government insists that Microsoft incorporate Netscape's competing browser product with every copy of our Windows operating system. There is no sensible basis in law or in policy for demands like that. The lawsuit poses a fundamental threat to the ability of American companies to innovate on behalf of their customers and to design their products without fear of government intervention. In many ways, the lawsuit is really just a repeat of the lawsuit the government filed last October. Like last year's case, the government's central complaint seems to be that it is somehow illegal for Microsoft to advance our technology and to help our customers by making the Windows operating system work really well with the Internet. That case is currently on appeal. We're expecting a decision soon from the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. The appeals court panel recently stated in its stay order that judges and juries should not be put in the unwelcome position of designing computers. We agree wholeheartedly, and we think our customers do too. We believe that the government was wrong to attack innovation last year. We believe the government is wrong to attack innovation today. We think that this lawsuit is bad for consumers. It's bad for software developers who are building upon Windows technologies, and it's bad for all companies that compete through innovation. The government's case seeks to turn innovative conduct into unlawful conduct. Microsoft has devoted enormous resources to develop a state-of-the-art Windows user interface. The government now demands that we give up the right to display the Windows user interface, a fundamental part of our operating system. When consumers turn on the new PC for the first time, the user interface is an integral part of the computer operating system. It's appropriate for consumers, it seems to us, to see the Windows interface at least once. After that initial boot, consumers already have complete freedom to replace the Windows interface, and computer manufacturers already have broad flexibility to customize the Windows desktop. We don't believe there is any legal basis for any of these demands by the government, and there is certainly not any consumer benefit. We are confident that the facts and the law are on our side. The antitrust laws of this country, after all, are intended to protect consumers, not competitors. We will vigorously defend the fundamental principle in this case, the freedom of every American company to innovate and to continually improve its products for its customers. And now Bill Gates will make a statement.
Well, thank you all for coming today. 23 years ago, Paul Allen and I started Microsoft on the principle that technology could dramatically improve people's lives. Since then, Microsoft has been hard at work making computers more affordable, easier to use, and accessible to millions of people. Today, people around the world do things with computers and the internet that just a few years ago would have seemed unimaginable. I'm especially proud of Microsoft's contribution in creating and advancing this revolutionary industry and constantly expanding consumer choice in hardware, software, and peripherals. Our Windows operating system is the most popular PC operating system in the world because it offers consumers the best combination of price and performance. Our desktop applications like Microsoft Word and Excel have made productivity tasks easier for millions of office workers, as well as people at home and at school. The internet features that are part of Windows have opened up a world of information and enabled thousands of other technology companies to create products for the internet. Today, we're shipping to computer manufacturers the next great innovation in software for the personal computer, Windows 98. Yet, ironically, on the same day that we're shipping this new consumer product, federal and state regulators have taken the unprecedented step of trying to intervene in America's most successful and growing industry by trying to promote their ideas of software design. This is a step backwards for America, for consumers, and for the PC industry that is leading our nation's economy into the 21st century. How ironic that in the United States, where freedom and innovation are core values, these regulators are trying to punish an American company that has worked hard and successfully to deliver on these values. We believe an antitrust lawsuit is counterproductive, costly to the taxpayers, and ultimately will be unsuccessful in the courts. I'm very disappointed we couldn't reach an agreement with the government. I would have liked nothing more to settle this matter without a lawsuit. That's why we spent so much time in intense negotiations with lawyers for the federal government. It's why we put forth in good faith substantive proposals despite the fact we feel the government's claims are without merit. Demands that Microsoft completely hide its Windows user interface and its internet technology from PC users, and that we ship Netscape's competing software with every copy of Windows, all appear to benefit a single competitor at the expense of consumers. Forcing Microsoft to include Netscape's competing software in our operating system is like requiring Coca-Cola to include 3 cans of Pepsi in every 6-pack it sells. The changes the government is demanding on the boot-up screen is like telling Coca-Cola that it must remove its name from every can of soda. And saying that we must remove internet technology from Windows is like telling Coca-Cola that it must take something out of its formula. This kind of government intervention, citing from the U.S. Court of Appeals ruling last week, would, quote, put judges and juries in the unwelcome position of designing computers. This suit is all about Microsoft's right to innovate on behalf of consumers, the right to integrate new technologies into the operating system as they develop. Under the rules the government regulators want to apply, Microsoft not only couldn't integrate internet technology, but we also would never have been allowed to integrate graphical interface or memory management or networking support, things that have allowed the PC industry to thrive and offer such amazing choices for consumers. If protecting government consumer choice is the government's goals, it won't be achieved by trying to curb the kind of innovation that Microsoft has offered consumers over the last 20 years. Computer users today have more choices than ever before. PC users can already choose between Microsoft's Internet Explorer and any other web browser. And computer manufacturers are free to install Netscape browsers on any computers they sell. The regulators complain about lack of choice, but they have the facts wrong. Huge numbers of users today easily choose whatever browser they want. Computer manufacturers choose to configure the first screen differently. They choose to add any browser. They choose to market whatever productivity software they want. Windows has helped grow an industry of millions of software developers worldwide, opening up new choices for consumers every day. We have promoted choice while bringing consumers the latest advances in technology. Interfering with the freedom to innovate through lawsuits like these will limit, not expand choice. Despite today's actions, I'm enthusiastic about the great things we're working on at Microsoft in partnership with thousands of other American technology companies, companies who share our vision of high-performance, affordable computing. We're going to stay very focused on building great products while we resolve this issue in the courts, because it's important to continue the progress we've seen in this industry. It's important for consumers, and it's important for America, because the technology industry really is our nation's economic engine, driving 25% of our economic growth and employing more than 7 million Americans. In every corner of America, the personal computer industry today is touching someone personally, with a job selling software at the CompUSA store in Lexington, Kentucky, creating the next killer software application in a garage in Boston, building a computer at Dell's Round Rock, Texas plant, or designing a more powerful microchip at Intel's operation in DuPont, Washington. There isn't an industry in America today that is more creative, more alive, and more competitive. And the amazing thing is, this all has happened without any government intervention in design. Indeed, it has happened precisely because companies like Microsoft, Compaq, Dell, Intel, IBM, Sun, Netscape, and many, many others have all been free to explore the frontiers of innovation and creativity without the government telling them how to do it. I'm confident that in the end, America's judicial system will uphold our right to innovate on behalf of consumers. While I am disappointed by today's actions, I look forward to presenting our case in court and continuing to create great software for consumers. One thing I'd like to do quickly before we move to Q&A is to ask Chris Capicella, one of our product managers, to come up and just quickly give us a quick tour of what the first screen looks like on typical computers today. Come on up, Chris.
Thanks. Let's head on over. Well, hello, everybody. PC makers have a lot of flexibility in the way they configure the first screen that their consumers see after they turn on the computer for the first time. To illustrate this point, we went out and bought 5 brand new PCs late last week from retail stores in our area. And let's take a look at each one of these to see how they do just that.
So these are exactly as they'd come out of the box.
That's exactly right. We've taken them out of the box, turned them on, and this is the first screen that you'll see on each one of these computers. The first one we're going to look at, and you can see it on the large screens in front of you, is the Compaq Presario. Now, the first thing you'll notice as a Windows user is the familiar Start button and taskbar at the bottom, as well as some familiar icons like My Computer and the Recycle Bin. However, Compaq has used the flexibility with the Windows startup screen by putting a web page on the background as the first screen. So you can see this sort of starry night, and you can also see the Compaq logo right there. If I put my mouse over that, down pops a little menu that says customize my desktop or get some service and support or learn about my Presario. So Compaq has decided to add this functionality to the very first screen that you see when you turn the computer on, and that's very different than the other computers that we'll take a look at today. Now Compaq is shipping this machine with a DVD drive. Windows 95, which is running on all of these machines, doesn't have support built into it for DVD, so they had to build some software and include it on this machine. They decided to include a link right on the desktop for this DVD software. Now I, as a user, when I turn this computer on for the very first time after Windows finishes booting up, that software is right there on the desktop for me to double click on, at which point Compaq's DVD software comes up and running. I'll go ahead and close that down. There's also a video phone included with this Compaq PC, and once again they've added some software to manage that phone, and they put a link right on the desktop to make that happen. The other thing I should point out is that Compaq included software not only from Compaq itself, but also decided to include some software from another company into it. In this case, they've included Quicken right on the desktop. So once again, I can double click, up comes Quicken, and off we go in setting up Quicken for the first time. So they've got a lot of flexibility in what icons they include and how they use this screen space that the user sees. The final thing I want to point out about this machine is that they included the channel bar as one of the elements that you see when you start the computer for the very first time. This makes it very easy for consumers to go out to popular websites by just clicking. You can see the America Online channel is there, the Pointcast channel is there, and Compaq even built their own channel and put that one click away from any of their consumers. Just click there, you'll go out to Compaq's website. Now, one thing I should point out is that Compaq's done a lot of work here, but consumers, it's very easy for them to customize the first screen that they see. For instance, if I want to delete the Microsoft Network channel, I can just pick that up and drag it right into the recycle bin, and now that's going to disappear from my bar. If I right-click on another one, I can choose Delete, say yes, and now that'll disappear as well. If I want to reorder it, I can drag this up, and in fact, if I don't like the channel bar at all, I can just click the X, and that'll go away, and now that's gone from my first screen. So that's quite a long look, actually, at the Compaq Presario and what they've done. Let's move on to our second machine, and we'll go a bit faster through the rest of these. Let's switch over to the HP Pavilion, which is the second machine that I have up here. We'll give it a second here so you can see the screen switch over. There it is. Now you'll notice, Bill, that the HP looks incredibly different from the Compaq in the way HP is branding this. Sure, the taskbar is still there with the start button and my computer and the recycle bin. Those common elements are there, but they've decided to put the HP Pavilion right on the background, their logo, and in fact, they even have an enticement for me to register this machine with HP. They say go ahead and double-click on the icon called Free, and I'll be able to play SimCity 2000 after I'm done registering. So HP has taken a completely different approach, and in this case they're trying to get me to register the products, and they put that right on the desktop. The other thing I should point out is that they've customized not only their desktop, but also the start menu. You notice these two additional icons are right here. One is called the Personal Guide. I'll go ahead and run that. This is a piece of software that HP has written to give the user the type of interface they want to explore their personal computer. So you can see I can get answers to common questions, I can get on the internet, I can even click on the software icon here, and now HP is going to walk me through what software is preloaded on this HP machine. If I click on Finance, you'll notice Quicken comes with this machine. If I click on Fun with Photos, you'll notice some other third-party software comes with this machine. So HP has really decided how they want their users to navigate through the machine while still keeping the common elements that every Windows user expects to be there on that PC. Let's move over to the Packard Bell. This is our third of 5 machines. And the Packard Bell is a very simple desktop. They just chose to put a custom wallpaper on their screen that says Packard Bell. But they chose to include some software called KiddoNet. This is a little simple browser that they wrote that is targeted towards kids. It'll let me get out onto the internet to some kid-friendly sites. It'll even let me play some little games here that young kids in particular are going to like.
Boy.
So right on their desktop, they've decided to include links to special software that they put together. The last thing I want to point out on this PC is the Navigator Assistant This is, again, a piece of Packard Bell software. When I double-click on that icon, sure enough, you're seeing a slightly different little interface here that lets me navigate through my machine. I can get support, I can get connected to the internet, I can click on software, and it'll bring up a little window that lets me explore what software comes preloaded on this machine. Very different than HP software. Again, what kind of entertainment is on the machine, what kind of finance and productivity, they're including Quicken also, what kind of graphics software, how to get online, etc., etc. That's a quick look at Packard Bell. Very different than the other two. Let's move over to the Sony machine. This is the Sony Vaio machine, and this is a very dramatically different looking screen than the other three we've seen. They have decided to put a web page on the background of their computer, and what this means is that the user can mouse over these different links and right from the desktop click on any one of these to get information about them. Notice that they've got a little program called the Vaio Space 2. Well, when I double-click on the Vaio Space 2, it asks the user, would you like to start this every time your computer starts? If I go ahead and say yes, now every time I turn my computer on, this little software program is going to run no matter what I've done here. So I have a lot of flexibility in how I, as a user, customize this little program. Similar to the HP and the Packard Bell, this little software called the Vaio Space 2 is a piece of software that lets the user navigate around the system. It's a way for Sony to build the relationship with the consumer that Sony wants to build right from the desktop. So if I click on software, it brings up a little browser window here, and again, I can navigate through and see that Quicken's on this machine. I can see some children's software. I can see some gaming software, etc. Let me close that down. I should point out here that in addition to all the software that you're seeing right on the desktop, they've decided to bundle Netscape Navigator with this machine. If I go to the Programs menu, if I come down to Netscape Communicator, I can see that it's right there a couple clicks away from me. And if I want to put that right on my desktop bill, I can simply do that by right-clicking, choosing Copy, and now I'll go ahead and paste it right under this icon. Let's choose Paste. And sure enough, Netscape Navigator is right on my desktop for me to double-click on. In fact, if I want to customize this further, I can just click on Internet Explorer, and I'll choose to delete that. Now that'll be removed from my desktop. If I want Netscape Navigator to be on my Quick Launch bar, I can just drag and drop it down to the Quick Launch, and sure enough, it's there. Very, very easy for the consumer to customize as they see fit. The last thing I want to point out is this fifth machine. This is the HP Kayak machine. We saw an HP machine earlier, and you'll notice that this is very, very different than that other one. The HP Pavilion is geared towards their low end, their consumers, whereas this is a workstation, a little bit more geared towards business users. So they've taken the flexibility that they have with the Windows First screen and made a different brand for these two machines, even though they're from the same company. And I just wanted to point out that with the HP Kayak comes with Netscape Navigator right on the desktop. So I don't have to go to the Start menu to find it. It's right there, just a couple clicks away. So I hope in just a couple of minutes we've shown that we've got 4 different vendors, 5 different PCs here, and although all of them have the common elements that every Windows user expects to see when they go to a Windows machine, the vendors themselves have a tremendous amount of flexibility in building the relationship with the consumer that they want.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
I think that balance of giving people the ability to buy a Windows machine and feel like they know how to navigate, that Windows really means something to them and it's useful, and yet you get some of the creativity that we've seen here. We think we've done a really good job striking that balance.
Okay, now I'd like to bridge to a quick 10 minutes or so of questions. Bill and Jeff, if you could.
Talks.
Well, we were very creative in coming up with ideas like putting a Netscape link on every copy of the desktop and many other things. The problem we kept coming back to was that some of their requirements, in particular making it impossible for people to get at the internet functionality of our product, making it so that people would never see any Windows user interface elements at all, and asking us without any limitation to ship any Netscape software and require that it be installed on every machine. They kept coming back to those again and again. I mean, the words out of their mouth were always Netscape this, Netscape that. If you can't prove that you're going to really hurt your market position in a dramatic way, then we're not interested.
Excuse me.
Personal for you, Mr. Gates.
I wouldn't say it's a personal issue. I was disappointed to hear that they, in their press conference, they kept using my name again and again. I don't understand why they would do that. For us, the principle is a pretty simple one, and it's not a personal one at all. The success of the PC industry has come because the platform has improved, and that's included ideas like graphical interface being integrated in, ideas like memory management, file system management. The browser is just a way of displaying information, and that's been part of the concept of the operating system from way back. And us supporting the internet is a good thing, allowing that information to be on your hard disk and you display it one way, or that it's out on the internet. And in Windows 98, there are great examples of that. Things like getting rid of the help system, so you're using the browser when you do help. So you can get that locally, you can go out to the internet. The browser is there, it's an integral part of the system, and the only key element in this dispute is they disagree with that design decision. Our decision to design the browser in, they don't like it. They want us to engineer so that that gets taken out, and so that any new feature we do in the operating system, people have to go and buy those hundreds and hundreds of pieces all individually.
What are some of the specific things that your company and other software companies are going to have to do while this litigation differently while this litigation is going forward? Are lawyers going to have to be more involved in your operations? Will there be any projects slowed down? Some specific examples, if you would, please.
Well, I think it's going to require some real leadership to make sure that we're not at all distracted, but I don't see any reason why we should be. The principles that the company has always stood for, those are principles that are encouraged. The results that have come out in terms of the choices in the PC industry, we couldn't be more proud of what's come out of that work, and we're going to continue down that path. Certainly there will be a substantial expense to the government and a substantial expense to Microsoft in going through this lawsuit. The most comparable example is probably the IBM lawsuit, and you can look back and see what a waste of resources was involved there. But Microsoft is going to keep doing new products, whether it's Windows 98, Windows NT, new versions of all our products, including simplifying things for customers. Maybe you want to add to that.
Yeah, as I spend nearly 100% of my time with our customers and our partners, it's very clear that what they're expecting us to do is to continue these innovations and continue to integrate them in order to both simplify the experience for the user, as you were able to see in some of these presentations, plus, in addition, it opens up for software developers all kinds of new things for them to do. In other words, it enables a great deal of choice. We, as a company, have to and will continue to be very focused in on that fundamental customer principle, because that's what's made this industry great.
To what extent do you understand that the government actions apply to Windows NT in both current and future versions?
Well, their basic principle that we shouldn't be able to put in new functionality, including in particular their disagreement with our design of putting the browser into the operating system. That's a very broad set of things that obviously would affect all the different forms of Windows. Maybe Bill won't comment. I think the lawsuit specifically speaks to Windows 98, but the principles they have in mind would stop all advances in all forms of Windows.
That's right. This lawsuit, as we understand it, is focusing entirely on Windows 98 at this point.
Bill, as you say, it's Netscape this, Netscape that. Throughout the complaint, you and other Microsoft executives are quoted saying pretty aggressive things about Netscape. At this point, do you feel that you perhaps could take a different tack towards Netscape, or that you should have taken a different tack towards Netscape? Why did you perceive them as such a big threat?
Well, Microsoft has many competitors. One of those competitors is Netscape. And there should be no confusion about the fact that they took their software platform and positioned that as a very head-to-head competitor to Windows. And they were very explicit that if they were successful, it would make Windows completely unimportant and make it fail in the marketplace. That's fine. That's competition. And we saw ourselves as needing to improve Windows in a lot of ways. We went to customers, talked to them about how we do those improvements. One of the improvements that we and every other operating system maker has moved towards is building the browser into the operating system and doing better and better integration with that browser. And so it's no surprise to me that there's quotes from inside Microsoft that say, hey, let's go compete, let's do a better product. In fact, you know, one point I'd like to come back to is why have our internet technologies been successful? It's because as we moved to Internet Explorer 3.0, as we moved to Internet Explorer 4.0, we did a better product. Now there's still plenty of opportunity for them to do a better product. These products are primarily distributed across the internet. There's no foreclosure in any way of the ability to distribute products across the internet. Whoever's got the best product out there on the internet, millions and millions and millions of people will download the best product. And so, you know, we compete with them. We both have the internet open as a distribution vehicle. I'm very proud of the work we did with Internet Explorer 4.0, and we're continuing to make those innovations.
Okay, let's take two more questions. Down here at the front.
What is the limit of the compromise that you're willing to reach here in this deal with the government?
Well, I don't think that asking us to ship a competitor's product in a totally open-ended way and force that on all Windows end users is an appropriate solution. I don't see any reasonable policy behind that. I don't see any legal basis behind that. So as long as they have that as one of their demands, we are going to need to resolve it in the courts. Likewise, as long as it's their position that all these new features we put into Windows, that they disagree with those design things and they want us to go back and re-engineer Windows to take those integrated features out, as long as they believe that, then we'll also have to turn to the judiciary. You know, both Bill Newcomb and I did mention the statement of the appeals court in the granting of the stay that was made last week. And I'd encourage everyone to go look at that sentence and understand exactly what that means about how the appeals court views our ability to design products.
Okay, one last question.
Did Microsoft and Netscape have meetings to discuss whether or not to divide up the browser market? And if so, how do you respond to that? And right now, secondly, are you planning to talk with Netscape to possibly work out some arrangement outside of the courts?
Well, the first is absolutely not. We never had any meeting of that kind in any way, shape, or form. And that's the kind of outrageous leak and outrageous lie that we're hearing in this case, that, you know, fortunately in the court proceeding, the facts will come out in a very straightforward way. It is true that we went and licensed the original University of Illinois browser through a company called Spyglass. And we shared that fact with Netscape, and they asked for several meetings. We sat down and talked to them about technical cooperation and information we could provide to them. They were asking us to license and distribute their browser. We chose not to do that. You know, I think the facts speak very, very clearly for themselves. As soon as we saw the importance of the internet, we talked about the browser being a feature of the operating system. And that was before Netscape was even founded as a company. Netscape very clearly decided to go out and compete with us in a very direct head-to-head way, and that's fine. We've invited them to all of our developer conferences. They've had early versions of the software development work we're doing so they can build on top of the Windows platform as they choose. So that kind of technical sharing will continue. But the main relationship we have with Netscape is they're a competitor. And so in the marketplace, we'll both be improving our browsers and seeing which one people happen to choose.
Well, thank you. That concludes our conference call. As I said earlier, there will be a telephone conference call for those that were listening in so they can ask questions. So Bill Newcomb and Jeff Rakes will be on that call. It will be starting in the next 15-20 minutes at approximately 12:30. The numbers for that are 1-800 857-9765. And for those people outside the United States, the number is 212-547-0301. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you.
From Redmond, Washington, Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates and other Microsoft officials held a 35-minute news conference sharing their views on the suit by the Justice Department.
Jeff, do you want to join us up here? Good morning. I'm Mitch Matthews. I run PR here at Microsoft. I think we're ready to begin. I'd like to say welcome to all of you here who are assembled here in Redmond, as well as those people who are joining us on the telephone listening into the conference call. As you know, the purpose of the briefing today is to respond to the government's actions with respect to filing an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft. Before I begin some housekeeping, I should mention that those listening in by phone, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions at a second teleconference call that we'll be doing about 30 minutes later after this. The phone-in numbers are on the advisory that went over the wire this morning, also on our website, and I'll circle back at the end of this and give you those numbers. Joining me today is Bill Gates, Chairman and CEO of Microsoft, Bill Newcomb, who's our Senior Vice President of Law and Corporate Affairs, and Jeff Rakes, who's our Group Vice President of Sales at Microsoft. Bill Newcomb will now begin with a statement. Thank you.
This case seeks to turn innovative conduct into unlawful conduct. Microsoft has devoted enormous resources to develop a state-of-the-art Windows user interface. The government now demands that we give up the right to display the Windows user interface, a fundamental part of our operating system. When consumers turn on the new PC for the first time, the user interface is an integral part of the computer operating system. It's appropriate for consumers, it seems to us, to see the Windows interface at least once. After that initial boot, consumers already have complete freedom to replace the Windows interface, and computer manufacturers already have broad flexibility to customize the Windows desktop. We don't believe there is any legal basis for any of these demands by the government, and there is certainly not any consumer benefit. We are confident that the facts and the law are on our side. The antitrust laws of this country, after all, are intended to protect consumers, not competitors. We will vigorously defend the fundamental principle in this case, the freedom of every American company to innovate and to continually improve its products for its customers. And now Bill Gates will make. Thank you, Mitch. Good morning, and thank you all for coming this morning. As you know, the Justice Department and 20 state attorney generals today have filed lawsuits against Microsoft Corporation. As many of you also know, we spent the past 2 weeks in serious negotiations with the government in the hopes of averting a lawsuit. We are disappointed that we were not able to resolve the matter. No matter how many proposals we put on the table, the government kept asking for more. Several things are clear at this stage. The government wants Microsoft to either deconstruct our Windows product by removing Internet technology that has been a part of that product since August of 1995, or the government insists that Microsoft incorporate Netscape's competing browser product with every copy of our Windows operating system. There is no sensible basis in law or in policy for demands like that. The lawsuit poses a fundamental threat to the ability of America to make a statement.
Well, thank you all for coming today. 23 years ago, Paul Allen and I started Microsoft on the principle that technology could dramatically improve people's lives. Since then, Microsoft has been hard at work making computers more affordable, easier to use, and accessible to millions of people. Today, people around the world do things with computers and the internet that just a few years ago would have seemed unimaginable. I'm especially proud of Microsoft's contribution in creating and advancing this revolutionary industry and constantly expanding consumer choice in hardware, software, and peripherals. Our Windows operating system is the most popular PC operating system in the world because it offers consumers the best combination of price and performance. Our desktop applications like Microsoft Word and Excel have made productivity tasks easier for millions of office workers, as well as people at home and at school. The internet features that are part of Windows have opened up a world
American companies to innovate on behalf of their customers and to design their products without fear of government intervention. In many ways, the lawsuit is really just a repeat of the lawsuit the government filed last October. Like last year's case, the government's central complaint seems to be that it is somehow illegal for Microsoft to advance our technology and to help our customers by making the Windows operating system work really well with the internet. That case is currently on appeal. We're expecting a decision soon from the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. The appeals court panel recently stated in its stay order that judges and juries should not be put in the unwelcome position of designing computers. We agree wholeheartedly, and we think our customers do too. We believe that the government was wrong to attack innovation last year. We believe the government is wrong to attack innovation today. We think that this lawsuit is bad for consumers. It's bad for software developers who are building upon Windows technologies, and it's bad for all companies that compete through innovation. The government